Scott. Oh boy. Excuse me 1 second, folks. Just making sure that Scott didn't completely leave us. Because it would be quite funny if for some reason I'm the one person that doesn't have internet issues today. Let's. Oh yeah, no, he's frozen. He's quite frozen. Um. Okay. Uh. Well, looks like it's just me, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Tales from the Film Set here on Zingo TV. I'm your de facto host, Ryan O'Regan. Scott is currently working on his internet and computer issues at home. And if I could tell you exactly where to find everything Zingo TV wise, you could definitely go ahead and go back to some other episodes because I do not remember it at all. I am sorry, Eduardo, but boy, there's just been so much on my mind lately. It's hard to really go ahead and rattle that off the way Scott does. He's such an expert. But we do have quite a few things to get into tonight here on Films That Tales on Twitter and Tales from the Film Set everywhere else you can find us YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, obviously. Unfortunately, we do have a couple of passings that have happened in the past week. Some, key performers in our field, especially one that hits very close to home right here in the New Jersey, New York area. We'll be getting into that because, unfortunately, I never really got to meet Mr. Paul Sorvino. But I do know that Davion and Scott have had their instances with him. I have worked with his family, Mr. Bill Sorvino. And Bill, if you're watching this, again, my condolences to you and your family. But we have to talk about him. We have to talk about David Warner. And of course, we will be getting into some of the stuff that came out this past weekend during San Diego Comic-Con, which after the many few years that we didn't have anything too spectacular, Hall H just ripped open this year. Gave us a lot of good stuff. More so on the Marvel side than on the DC side. Some people still a little upset that Henry Cavill didn't show up. I would say to that, it was a rumor. Calm yourself. Nothing was ever confirmed. You didn't get slighted. But, um, so I guess in the meantime, until Scott goes ahead and gets on here, um, I did just want to touch on one little story that I saw earlier today. And maybe you saw it online, maybe you didn't, but it was in regards to the Logan Paul commentary regarding Jordan Peele's Nope, which of course was number one at the box office this past weekend, getting a nice little 44 million for its opening. And Logan Paul just went on like a whole tirade of all the things that he did not like in the movie. And mind you, some of it may still be valid, but the majority of it was that he didn't understand why this thing or that thing was happening in the film. Now, of course, I'm trying not to say anything too specific because I'm sure there's plenty of you people that haven't seen it. You should. It's a nice little horror movie. Then nice little, subtext as to what's going on about like spectacle and the nature of the beast and whether or not things can be tamed and handled and controlled and what's really out of your depth. There's a lot that it does have to say if you're looking at it. But unfortunately, someone like Logan Paul, with his mastery of film, as anyone who's ever seen any of his movies, has anyone ever seen any of his movies? I don't know. But if anyone has ever seen those, yeah, I can understand people being critical of a horror film, especially when you've seen things like Get Out and Us from the same director, and you now have almost like this template to go off of. Scott's back. Okay, great. I was pretty much just going into the whole idea of Logan Paul maybe going a little bit too hard on the movie Nope. Um, and I made sure no spoilers. But I would say if you are someone like Logan Paul, first of all, change yourself. Secondly, if you are someone who had problems with the movie, fine. You're open to your interpretations. I would say I don't know if I would necessarily trust the word of someone like Logan Paul when it comes to a movie that let's say he probably couldn't make his own. Um, I personally enjoyed the film, and I'm going to stick to my opinion of it. I thought it was very nuanced. I thought it was a nice departure from whatever we had gotten from Jordan Peele's previous movies. And yes, it may be a little bit slower, it may be a little bit more divisive. Certainly not typical. I feel like his work on the Twilight Zone from CBS, Paramount Plus, has kind of shaped his view in making this movie because it is a bit of a departure from the first two. But I want to see a departure. I don't want to see directors necessarily doing the same thing all the time. So if you found it to be that much different and you felt like he was trying to make the other movies but didn't, that's because he wasn't. And, creatively, if there's something that you don't get, watch the movie again. Do a deep dive. That's how you get a little bit more immersed into the story. You don't just take it at face value and be like, I didn't get it, so it sucks. But I'm off my high horse because now we have Scott back.
We had two brownouts here. One at 3 minutes before the show started, and one, I don't know how many words I got out from that intro. We're just going to skip the intro unless you did whatever you did. I have no idea. But I had two of which knocked the internet connection right out. I have all the bad words that I really want to say right about now, too. But anyway, so basically, dude, it could have happened at any point today. Why did it wait till 3 minutes before and 1 minute after this show started? This does not make a good impression on my mother-in-law my mother-in-law moved in officially last night. The words that fired off out of my mouth about 5 minutes ago probably did not endear me to the new member of the household here.
But now she knows her place. These are the words that will happen in this house.
Dude, the problem is getting to it. I have so many boxes around here and so much stuff that I had to toss stuff around in the office to get to the router and the net and the internet connection.
Well, I mean, to segue from what I was saying, you'll probably be hearing Nope quite a bit yourself.
Anyway, so cool. I'm back. God willing, that'll be the last time. I heard fire engines around here, so maybe something exploded. I don't know what. But anyway, continuing onward and upward, and I will use my phone on data if I have to get through this. All right. So have you only been talking so far about Nope?
Yeah, I did run down that we wanted to talk about the few faded that were deeply departed this past week, and that we would touch on some of the stuff from San Diego Comic-Con. I didn't do the whole Zingo TV speech because you've got that nailed and I do not.
All right. Suffice it to say, Zingo TV is an app that's available. Download it. It's free of charge. Get it. And it's available on pretty much any technology that you've had in the last 6 years. There. Cool. Done. Moving on.
Oh, wow. I didn't know there was a short version.
I'm making the short. Dude, we're 10 minutes into the show. We're doing the short version a la Princess Bride.
That was Paul's.
What's that? Oh, was it? Oh,
Spaceballs did the short version.
And I just did a video on that too. 10 facts. I saw oh man, like trying to conduct the wedding here. So, all right. Anyway, yes. So, we're gonna probably talk a little bit, definitely San Diego Comic-Con throughout this, but honestly, in the last 48 hours, we've lost three people actually. First basically on 2 days ago was David Warner, then Paul Sorvino, and then most recently Tony Dow, probably best known from Leave It to Beaver. He was also a cinematographer, so he did a lot of stuff there too. So we're going to be starting this off a little bit right now, talking about the good sir, in this case here, Mr. David Warner, fantastic classic actor. We just lost Ryan's connection. So we're having all sorts of fun, good times today.
What are you infecting me with, Scott?
Dude, I swear this never happens to me. But I think, we'll blame mother-in-law. It's her fault. Never had a problem until she was here. So, but anyway, yes, let's start this off. We're going to be talking a little bit about, David Warner first. This is the one that probably hit me the most, although I have, met and been in passing several times with Paul Sorvino. David Warner, classic British actor, long-standing career, Omen, Titanic, voice work out the wazoo that was nothing short of phenomenal. Ra's al Ghul from Batman, the Loeb from Freakazoid, and just You know, the George he was Bob Cratchit and George C. Scott's Scrooge, and a little by the wayside here versus Paul Sorvino, but in my mind, bigger.
Well, I think David Warner an elaborate career. You know, he's done a lot of different things, both as even a good guy or a bad guy, depending on how you saw him. The first time I remember seeing anything with probably would have been when I was at my grandmother's watching HBO and Time Bandits came on, and he played the
Yes.
character of Evil, just Evil, and Dove. And then you see things like he does, like with Ra's al Ghul or with Sark, or he had a very imposing voice. It had a very I don't want to say necessarily demeaning tone, but when he spoke, you felt like the dumbest person in the room. He had that way of speaking where it was just so mature, so matter of fact. So I know exactly what I'm saying. Especially, yes, when you talk about what he did with Ra's al Ghul. Probably the Ra's al Ghul wasn't from the comics; it was from the animated series, and that being probably the most intellectual assailant against Batman. When every time he said detective, it was like,
yes, it was both a matter of respect and demeaning in the same word.
Yeah, because Warner had that British upbringing. He just had class. He had a class, which is funny considering some of the roles he's also done later on, like when he was in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2.
Yeah, well, yeah, but I mean, also Star Trek 5 and 6, and the and Deep Space Nine, and he was Chancellor Gorkon. Ninja Turtles 2, Secret of the Ooze. Okay, we can probably cross that off the list. But you mentioned Tron in there. I mean, I was a kid. I was raised on Tron, and Dillinger was one of those just smarmy villains, and it was classic. Like I said, all the way through. And then of course, basically taking it through the Omen right there. I mean, much younger at this point. David Warner, also basically being that guy in Titanic, the guy that had Jack arrested.
Oh yes.
So, but yeah, he always kind of had that sort of British, sort of like lawful evil kind of a persona to pretty much everything he did.
Very authoritative. Be in power and to be a ball buster, Warner could do that.
And in this case, like I said, for somebody like this, it was not surprising, but at the same time it was. I mean, Paul Rugg, who was the creator of Freakazoid Animaniacs, frequently collaborated with David Warner on those. And I know for a fact he took it pretty hard because, it was him, it was Ed Asner, it was Ricardo Montalban, and they were like this tight, like veteran group between them. And David Warner was kind of the center of that because when he had the opportunity, he lightened up a lot, and he became just a very jovial person. He did an episode of Doctor Who with Matt Smith. That's sort of forgotten a little bit. The fact that this long-standing actor was like, oh crap, he was in Doctor Who, and it kind of surprised a lot of people because of the fact that with everything that he's done, you're like, really, he did that too, and it was impressive to see him do so much for so long and right up pretty much to the end, more or less. But yeah, kudos to him. So any final thoughts before we move on? Yeah. Okay. Basically right now, I think he's just completely 100% speechless at this point. We are having I'm going to be honest with you. We are having one hell of an issue. For those of you who don't know, it is a very, very dry weather situation over here. We got a half an inch of rain. I saw something earlier today that said that we since like June 1st, we're like 5.5 inches below what the average is for the area right now. And based on Newark has like 0.4 inches of rain this month, which is like 3.5 inches less than we have. It's been dry constantly. My cable box apparently is giving me some messages over here. That's interesting.
I just got a new router.
And you were just bragging about that beforehand too, man. You were just bragging about the fact you got new technology here. You're bragging, it's like I think like you said 600 meg download or whatever it was. And it was just, yeah. And at this point, basically, I've got new stuff over here. I've got, things are working. Yes, and I would have got, yes, exactly. It was me. I did it to you. I don't have any alcohol. I haven't been drunk since yesterday.
Speaking villains,
yes.
I think it's only fair that we transition into, I'd say, a very notable passing that we had just the other
Yes.
day. And I wish
Yesterday. Yeah,
Davion was
Paul
on
Sorvino.
here with us because I know he has worked closely with the Sorvino family as of late. So I'm sure he probably has plenty to say. Obviously, if he joins us on Thursday, we'll go ahead and give him time to speak on that.
Sure, certainly. And Paul Sorvino, I mean, his
But
career.
yeah, one of the biggest mobster personalities, especially around here. Work on Law, Goodfellas. His family has their own legacy with Mira Sorvino.
Yeah.
We know. It's kind of person that like it feels like everyone I know has met him except me.
Mm-hmm. There. Basically, a much chubbier version the first time I met the man. Chubbier, and by God, I'm almost like silhouette in that picture. That is me about probably 9-ish years ago with Paul Sorvino. His nephew runs the Golden Door Film Festival, which is the film festival in Jersey City, highly respected, highly appreciated. Davion, who can't be on here tonight, works for the Golden Door Film Festival. So he's met and worked with Paul Sorvino in the past. I talked to Bill yesterday. Bill was okay. I mean, they knew some stuff was going on. There was some issues going on behind the scenes that he never really talked too much about. So when it came to Paul Sorvino's passing, people, I think, weren't really necessarily surprised by it just because of the fact that the man was literally in his 80s. But, I mean, if you look here, with Goodfellas was like 1980, I think it was, or 1990, I'm sorry. So you're looking at 30 plus years for that. One of the key big thing that actually for Paul Sorvino himself is when his daughter Mira won her own Academy Award. And I saw a video of it this morning. If you ever get a chance, try and check that out because, she tributes a lot of her success in the industry to him, and a lot of what she learned to her father when she got that Academy Award. And you see him as just the most proud dad you could ever see. This mafia tough guy that you've seen from all these movies, Goodfellas, Mob Boss, all this stuff, Law and Order, he's a badass, and you just see the tears coming down this proud dad's face, as his daughter was collecting an Academy Award. And you didn't see Paul Sorvino, the mobster actor badass. You saw Paul Sorvino, the human. And that's the Paul Sorvino that we need to remember more of.
And like I said, it's a shame because even if you don't know his entire life, you know what the man looks like. David Warner was a different story because I feel like he immersed himself in his character and the
Sure.
over the man. But Sorvino was one of those actors that it's like regardless of who he played, you recognized him the minute you know exactly who he is.
Yeah.
And if anything, you did trace it back to Goodfellas, yes. But there's so much that the married career, and like I said, I was going down my feed, and everyone from you to Davion to Gennaro Pastore to Bill Sorvino to everybody's had a picture. Dang. But that's how much she was.
I get it.
Connected to just like this New York. We talk about like what we when you talked about the last people on, and we talked about like tough guy actors, the Ray Liotta's and stuff like that. Sorvino was definitely in that same realm. If anything, he was probably the local realm. And without a Gandolfini, Sorvino would be the next in line. So it's a little disheartening for like a big community here in New York as far as acting and just Italian influence. He, you know, things that we see nowadays commonplace. You know, the whole is where it's just like all hanging out in front of the stores, and the guy in jail who goes ahead and cook a seat. There's a
Mhm.
addition to things. It's because actor like Sorvino works so well, so much so that it was often imitated and duplicated.
I remember years later, there was a film I was screening for the Hoboken Film Festival. He eventually did a film with Ken Del Vecchio up there. But I remember it was him and Joe Piscopo. And it was a comedy, where he played a mob boss.
Oh boy.
Yeah. It was he played a mob boss. I forget the name of it. I had to look it up. But he wants to actually create like an opera, or like a musical or something like that. And this mob boss is like, all right, I'll let you off the hook if you create this entire thing. Because some people forget that also, if you ever, again, this is also on YouTube as well. Paul Sorvino was a fantastic singer. His opera chops were just off the charts. And it was absolutely 100% impressive if you ever got the chance to hear it. And it wasn't something he belted out too often, but when he did, it was, like I said, it was something he stood up and took notice. So in this movie, him wanting to do something in the musical theater route and having Joe Piscopo having to pay off a mob debt to the guy, was kind of fitting in some ways, I think, But there was some movie where he did with Ken Del Vecchio where he was the Shah of Iran, and that was just, again, that was, right up to pretty much the very end. So, into his 70s and, even beyond. I mean, he was still working all the way through. I don't know how many credits the man's got, but dear God, I'm sure it's probably a lot. This has actually got me
He's got
curious.
plenty. Unfortunately, I can't say that it's anything that I am recognizing, with the
I'm,
exception of maybe a couple of television shows that he appeared on. But I mean,
you know,
that
I,
just
I'm
speaks to Paul being a working actor. There are some people that
sure.
will go ahead and they're like, okay, I did one or two mob movies, and I'll rest on those laurels. But Paul, he wasn't doing it for the stardom or necessarily for like the fame. Personally, I
Mhm,
would say he always seemed like he was doing the work because, well, I mean, one, it's work, but
mhm,
two, because he wanted to keep working. It didn't
sure.
seem like the kind of guy who wanted to quit.
His career on IMDb started in 1970 with something called "Where's Papa." I have no idea, but oh God, I remember that was with George Burns. "Where's Papa" was a movie with George Siegel. Okay, Ruth Gordon and Ron Liebman. Oh
Uh,
God,
his nephew Bill Sorvino was called "Where's Jenna?"
yes,
Lots of
yes,
questions,
about Jenna
always
Jameson.
questioning.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah. Where's everybody here? Yeah, Bill had that. He had some other stuff in there too.
Where's Scott?
Um,
Where's I? It's our internet.
I don't right. Yeah, God knows at this point we're just gonna get like dead air on this, and all right. I don't know. I'm sitting here. It's funny. I'm watching your connection drop out, and sitting there looking at mine and being like, "Come on, hold on here." Um, 30. We got 30 minutes left. I think we can stick out another 30 minutes here. And not have the internet. This show has been unbridled internet connection hell today. So, but that would you expect from summer anyway. But yeah,
Pete.
passing of David Warner, passing. So all I'm going to say is that we never had these kind of we never had internet issues like this when Martin Van Buren was president. Okay, when Van Buren was president, we did not have internet connection problems.
No, we had all other ones.
Yeah, exactly. Dying of a cold. But so yeah,
But of
passing.
course, you also wanted to touch on the third passing that apparently just today.
Yeah, we got one more. We'll touch on this one for a quick second. Paul Sorvino. There we go. Tony Dow, the last one of the bunch. Tony Dow is best known as the older brother on Leave It to Beaver. I think his name was Wally, I want to say. And mostly known for that, but apparently did some special effects stuff on Doctor Who, on the Paul McGann movie. He did directorial work on Deep Space Nine. He also did VFX works on like Babylon 5. So he worked behind the scenes and in front of it too, pretty much right to the end. So kudos to him. They did have the new Beaver, like back in the 1980s. They rebooted the series with all the kids now as adults, getting to the same wacky antics, but now with the kids. So, but yeah, he was 77. So the youngest of the bunch here. But yeah, so it's been an interesting 48 hours with, they always say these things happen in threes. So first basically was David Warner, then Paul
But
Sorvino,
yeah,
and
the
then Tony
classic
Dow. And
Wally
then
and the
knowing the
Beaver.
way that basically this decade has been going, we will have one tomorrow and Thursday and Friday and Saturday and Sunday and Monday and Tuesday. We're going to basically just have one a day for the next like 6 months.
Right. And then the thing, I was
like I said earlier, our network connection sucks today. So we're going to just muscle through. I may actually just delete this video when it's done. I'm not even sure yet.
pretty much like classic
Mm-hmm.
Hollywood with the Beaver. Then Wally brother, because funny enough, I think the last time I even
Yeah.
heard anything about Wally and the Beaver was 8 Mile. They were
Yeah.
doing the rap battle at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Just I don't know what it is about Leave It to Beaver that like really sticks out in people's heads. I mean, there were quite a few like family sitcom back then, with like the whole black and white
My Three
middle
Sons
America
and
white
yeah.
picket fence sort of look. But I don't know, something about Leave It to Beaver just kind of like became sensational, and I don't understand why personally. To be honest, I've never watched an episode, but Lord knows I know what Leave It to Beaver is. Lord knows I
Yeah.
know the Cleavers. You know, it's hard not to like be in entertainment and not have at least heard about it once. It's weird.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things that it's just so prim and perfect. I mean, Pleasantville was based on kind of like that world, where everybody is just great and it's wonderful. And, I mean, like I said, we had an episode on earlier where,
But then they started introducing sex, and then everything went to color.
oh, exactly. Yes. But in this case here, it's more like, well, gee whiz, Amber, what do you say we hold hands at make out point? Oh, I don't do that on a first date. What kind of girl do you think I am? What can I look at you? Only at my nose, not my eyes. It was just,
It's like if it was really like that back then, but Lord knows all the shows did the same stuff, and it all kind of like felt very, I guess, universal. I
yeah.
don't know if that's just simply because that's what television decided to showcase to the public, and that way it kind of like immersed itself into society, or if that's really how it was. But, whew, boy, was that just squeaky clean milk
I
for
don't,
dinner sort of stuff back then.
I don't think it was really like that. I think probably it was a little bit closer to like when Marty McFly went back in time. 1955 there where they're trying to wheel the TV in so they can sit there and watch the honeymooners. It's like, you ever marry a guy like that, I'll kill you.
Yeah.
I have a feeling
Meanwhile, his mom is like getting drunk before prom and trying to make out in the back seat.
yeah, which actually there was an outtake where they put like real scotch in there, and Michael J. Fox didn't know when he took a swig. So that was prime. But yeah, so like I said, 3 days, 3 passings. Who knows what tomorrow's going to be like? All right, moving on to things that are a little more, or I don't know, possibly less upbeat. I don't know how we want to work this. Um, Marvel. You wanted to talk San Diego Comic-Con.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're talking the unfortunate passing of people, and I'd say the biggest thing that probably came out of Comic Con, aside from the entire lineup of Phase 5 and Phase 6 from Marvel, was certainly the trailer for Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, which of course is
Mm-hmm.
the final movie of Phase 4, the final movie before 2020. And oh my, half trailer and
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
helped. It also made you riled up. And
Mm-hmm.
this may very well be
I don't.
the most serious movie that the MCU puts out, because it's going to deal with like some heavy stuff. Namor and him being like not Atlantis, but it's like South American. I think that's a
Mhm.
great. I think it lends it to some realism. Besides, you don't want two kings of Atlantis, considering Aquaman has another movie coming out
Mhm.
too. So that's just smart. But the stuff that they're going to be saying for Wakanda, all of the different that his mom, his sister, again, girlfriend, I guess, from Lupita Nyong'o. Uh, what was her name? Nakia? Nakia.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Looking forward to it, but I am taking tissues.
I have, yeah. Here's my take on this. I don't know how well it's going to do. Because I mean, Chadwick Boseman was the glue that had the Black Panther. They kept the Black Panther suit together, I guess we can say. And losing him, obviously, that's a tragedy in its own right. And there's not, I almost wonder if maybe it would have been better to let it go. I mean, here's the thing. They've been talking about, Black Panther 2 for some time now, and obviously lost the window, but they're like, Marvel Phase 4 has not done well for Disney. The profits haven't really been there. Thor has taken the hit that we kind of predicted on there. The Eternals did not do well. Shang-Chi was okay. But it did not pull in any of the Phase 1, 2, or 3 money. And I almost wonder if it's possible if people are getting tired of comic book movies. Because everything runs its course. We looked at the 1950s where everything was wholesome. Back then you had alien monster movies. And then also eventually you had Westerns as well. People got burned out. 15 years ago, 20 years ago, everything was like zombie films. Zombie films were just running the table on all this kind of stuff. They started to phase out. People lost interest. I wonder at this point if comic book movies will soon be next. Or at least Marvel comic book movies.
I think if nothing else, you have to look at Phase 4 kind of like Phase 1, where it's a testing ground. I mean, mind you, when they did Phase 1, they were working with characters who did not have the name recognizability as, say, Spider-Man or the X-Men. And certainly they didn't have the rights to something like Blade, which already proved that it could work in an R-rated horror field. So it was they had
Disney.
Marvel elements out
Disney.
there, but they didn't have the Marvel elements that were being utilized and worked. So they
Yeah.
tested with Iron Man. They tested with a Captain America, which, let's face it, up until then, we had the television show and we had the weird movie where Red Skull became Italian. Don't ask me about that. But you have to look at Phase 4 kind of like in the same vein where they are testing out what they can do. The difference is that they're working with a lot more to test. So you're seeing a lot more fail than succeed. And unfortunately, it's one of those things where, yeah, you have a Phase 5 that's already set up. You have potentially sequels. You can look at and the Wasp. That's a sequel. Guardians. That's a sequel. Loki getting a second season. Atla is essentially a spin-off from WandaVision. Is to be a spin-off from even Echo in its own right is a spin-off from Hawkeye. Ironheart is going to take place after the events of Wakanda Forever, I'm sure. There's so much that they had build off of. That they have Shang-Chi, I'm sure it's going to be inserted here somehow. Guardians is going to be finishing up, so it's a matter of who they take out and who they don't. And we already have established Jonathan Majors, Kang, to be the everlasting threat.
Yeah, but
it's uncharted. You think it's just going to be a continuation after the Infinity Saga, but now we have the Multiverse Saga. We're back at square one. So while there is some trepidation because it's not having the same success as it's having almost an equal amount of success to what Phase 1 did. That's why I feel like Wakanda Forever is going to be their Avengers. It's going to be the big move.
Here's the only thing I'm going to say that I don't agree with you on that. With Phase 1, every single one led into some kind of a concept where they're going to mishmash all the characters together in one big threat. I mean, you throw in Samuel L. Jackson as Nick Fury, you throw in little teasers, and they pre-planned Avengers 1 4 years 4 years after Iron Man was released. They released Avengers 4 years. Nobody had ever seen something like that before. Now at this point, we've had 3 Avengers story arcs, 4 movies, if you will, and okay, we got Secret War coming up. At this point, it's like, what's new? I mean, okay, they had, they went to the multiverse. Great. People go on red lights instead of green lights. It was not a true, a real multiverse. I mean, it was just like cameo multiverse. And I think as a result, it was sort of a letdown. I think if they really wanted to do this, you reboot this in a new universe, and brand new, like I said, start again from scratch, start again. That's what, I mean, I told you about this, Moon Knight. I really hope that existed in a different universe, just because of the fact that you can reboot again from scratch, where all the previous 3 phases were pretty much just not even, were non-existent. You were oblivious to what happened over there. That's what I was really hoping for there. And I'm not really sure if it was, off, a different universe or not. But I think if you're going to reboot this, you got to reboot this in its own realm. All of these are just like, okay, we've seen this before. Ant-Man and the Wasp, 3rd movie. Great. We've seen Ant-Man and the Wasp. Echo, great. We saw Echo. Fine. Loki, great. We've been seeing Loki for 10 years here. At this point, I think the fans are bored of the same content. Actually, that doesn't work that way. The fans are, I think, a little bored at this point because it's pretty much the same thing over and over. And Disney is trying to get every single dime that they can. And they're pissing the fans off just like they did with Star Wars.
I can see what you're saying with that. I understand that.
The newness is worn off.
The way I look at it is pretty much as the saga as a whole. I mean, yeah, you talk about how everything kind of connected into one thing after the other in phase 1. That's when we had a singular timeline, storyline leading up to a big crescendo.
And it was perfect. It was great.
Right. Whereas with this, you have a lot of different strands going in different directions. Mm-hmm. That's why I feel like there's been a lot more add-on at the end of movies, whether it be characters or whatever, because there's a very real possibility that by the time this is all over and done with, not all of this is surviving. This is pretty much them just throwing everything at the wall and seeing what sticks, so that by the time it gets to phase 6, when they have Fantastic Four and the 2 Avengers movies, they have an idea about what's going to stay and what's going to be lost. And I think that's almost a little evil, because you are going to have some amount of investment into some of these characters, and you may end up losing them. Whereas at the end of, Avengers Infinity War with that saga and everything, yeah, you lost Cap, yeah, you lost Iron Man, and you've lost a couple of others since then. But at this point, I think anything is possible. Whereas with the original stuff, there was an eventuality that we were all going to lead to, whether it was from the comics or not. Here, there's so much possibility of the unknown because it's going all over the place, that I'm hoping that by the time it does get to those 2 Avengers movies, it's going to be shocking and surprising what we keep and what we lose.
And you know what? By 3 years from now, nobody may even care.
Well, we'll have to wait and see. Lord knows there's going to be enough content for us to work with. Lord knows we're doing She-Hulk when it debuts next month.
I mean, call me a cynic on that. I get that. I respect that. But I'm not convinced that people are going to care 3 years from now.
Maybe not. Maybe the fan base does shorten, or maybe there's something coming down the pipe that may go ahead and bring them back in. Who knows? I mean, look at wrestling. People who fell out of wrestling, the minute there was AEW, they came back in. Now that Vince McMahon is retiring, that maybe people come back to the brand because it's going to be a different view and they're going in different directions.
And maybe that's the key here. The key should actually be really that the people that are in charge are no longer in charge, and it gets turned over. I mean, Spider-Man worked because it wasn't Disney. It was a fresh take, I think. And I think with Sony's take on it, it had a different vibe to it.
Well, yeah. I mean, look at DC. Their panel.
A different vibe, yeah.
Very different. You know, aside from the Henry Cavill stuff where people were upset that there was no Superman stuff, there also technically wasn't anything that connected to any of the Snyderverse or Justice League.
Mhm.
Nothing with the Flash. Nothing, none of that stuff. It was actually pretty low key, with the exception of the stuff they were talking about for like animated movies and television.
And
But
that okay.
I like what they did with Black Adam, and I
Mhm.
like what they did with Shazam. I liked what that they're working on those two. The fact that they didn't even show anything for Aquaman, which is supposed to happen later on this holiday season,
Well,
unless it got pushed back
they're in
that year.
chaos mode right now with everything happening with Amber Heard.
Yeah, I mean, they knew that they didn't want to necessarily go too hard because when they have gone too hard before, whether it was Justice League or Batman v Superman, they've ended up shooting themselves in the foot. So I think that the idea that they at least have a couple of big things, and then you have The Rock, who is, franchise Viagra, just go
Basically,
ahead and stand there in the suit, even though he apparently got a few boos because it wasn't Henry Cavill. I'm like, it's still the freaking Rock. Yes, he's going to voice Crypto the Superdog, but he's Black Adam too.
but he voices Crypto the Superdog alongside Kevin Hart, and we know how that tandem works so well. But here's the difference. I think, like I said, we talked about here. DC, all this stuff is standalone. Marvel, all this stuff is tied together. I mean, you look at the DC, animated stuff. We talked about this last week or week before. It's all more or less basically just standalone stuff. So you can view it with a fresh set of eyes and no previous knowledge required.
Well, it's not even just that, but also don't forget, before this, there is the shakeup happening at Warner Brothers.
Yes.
So there is a changing of the guard as far as who is in control. Lots of people have used the phrase "the axe of Zaslav" in
Mhm.
order to say, this stuff is being cut, this stuff is being discontinued. We're, cleaning the slate, we're taking out the filler, cutting off the fat, whatever other usage you want to use. That's what they're doing over at Warner Brothers. So I don't blame them for giving just a little taste because this is the taste that's been approved.
Mm-hmm.
Best not to go ahead and put things out there that may not necessarily transpire. We already know we're getting a second Joker. We already know that we're getting a second The Batman.
Mm-hmm.
That's all we need to know for now.
But again,
Whereas Marvel, even when they've gone ahead and they've shown us those timelines of like this movie coming out, this movie coming out, this movie coming out, they've still gone ahead and changed things and added things and taken away things. So even that stuff isn't necessarily set in stone. Some things have to be, yes, because we've already been hearing about it before and production needs to happen. It may be too much production for them not to do some things, but it's a matter of what they have confidence in. And I think the whole issue with Kevin Feige and Bob Chapek and a lot of the management that's gone on over at Disney has been part of the problem. Kevin Feige is being pulled in too many directions, and Chapek is Chapek.
yeah, and I think the struggle here is, like I said, they're realizing that they're losing something here. Disney is losing its financial clout. Disney World, Disneyland aren't doing that well. Hulu is now basically trending on Twitter with a boycott of Hulu going on. Because Hulu apparently is not showing certain political commercials that have pissed off a group of people. And, so as a result, that's going to be hitting into them a little bit. The Fox stuff, maybe not so much. That's not that bad. But they're concerned a little bit because the stock prices right now, I think, are dropping and their bonuses are going with it. So they're trying to milk. The original plan with Star Wars is that they were going to have so much more content you would not be alive to see it all. That was exactly what they said. And then after a while, the fans got tired of it. Solo bombed. Last Jedi, and I mean, Return or Rise of Skywalker barely cleared $1 billion. Barely.
Well, that's why you got the theme park at least.
Yeah. Well, yeah, at $8,000 a night or whatever that thing is.
Don't get me started on the Star Cruiser. My
Dude,
God.
well, you talked about your last trip to Disney and how that went, but I mean, these things, like I said, this is not, the John Hammond from Jurassic Park. This is not meant to cater to the super rich. Everyone should be allowed to enjoy these animals. That's not the Disney motto now when it comes to theme parks.
No, it's a shame that I think just as an industry as a whole, we may have gotten to a point where there's just a little bit too much excess all around.
Yes.
And I think some studios are seeing that. They're seeing the possibility of scaling back things, the possibility of smaller things being given, room to breathe. I think going back to Nope,
Mm.
that was the last. That was the last good opening that we had for an original film since Jordan Peele's last movie, Us.
Yeah. What is it with him with one syllable movie titles?
Hey, it hits, and
Yeah.
you know it's a rule of comedy. You never want to have anything too jumbly
Mm.
that goes ahead and it's like marbles in your mouth when you try to say it. Short to the point, gets it done.
The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai Across the Eighth Dimension.
Yeah, that didn't help it.
Yeah.
But something like
top five facts
Back
in
to
the
the
Universe.
Future,
Literally on that day is
it's back, future, done.
Yeah. Back to the Future. So.
Top Gun.
Mm.
Some short titles really just hit like that. The minute
So,
you have a title where it's overly complicated, look at Birds of Prey or the Emancipation whatever of Harley Quinn. That confused the heck out of
yeah.
audience members because they didn't know what they were seeing. They didn't know if it was a Harley Quinn movie. They didn't know if it was a Birds of Prey movie. I get that they were trying to do something like Birdman but that's a whole different thing with that title because most people don't say the whole title for Birdman. They just say Birdman.
Yes.
See? Birdman.
Birdman. Harvey Birdman, attorney at law. Oops. Hit that mistake.
Think about it. When was the last time you heard of a short titled movie that just kind of didn't sound engaging?
Borat? I mean, it didn't sound engaging. Borat.
Okay, well, no, that's not true because Borat has a much longer title.
Yeah, but it does. Nobody can. Nobody can actually say that one. I don't think even Sacha Cohen can say that one.
Right, but if you just say Borat, people will think very nice. That it resonates. If you try to sell them on the whole title of the thing, you lose them because then it's like they're reading a book. They're falling asleep to it. I think of what's another good example?
Star Wars.
All right,
Star
I know it was based off a musical, but a funny thing happened on the way to the forum.
Mm-hmm.
Commercially, not a success, and it's a movie musical that I actually enjoy because of Zero Mostel. I like Zero Mostel. Anyone who doesn't know who that is, producers, the first one,
the original producers, yes. So,
but yeah, it's like if you don't know what that is, you think, okay, is he telling me the title of a movie, or is he telling me a story, or what exactly is going on here?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the kind of stuff that can confuse people. It's rare that it ever actually works, like something like Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, or Harry Potter and the blah 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 of Azkaban, or whatever.
Insert thing here.
Right, but I think those only worked because those were books.
Yes,
it's like you can have a long title for a book, and if you adapt it, then fine. Then that way it just.
And even with those, though, I mean, now it's Prisoner of Azkaban, Goblet of Fire, Half-Blood Prince, Order of the Phoenix, one in the middle. So you bypass the Harry Potter to shorten down the number of syllables.
Right. I mean, you could even say Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Might have been a bit much.
Or just Multiverse of Madness, yeah.
Or just Doctor Strange Madness.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would Doctor Strange Madness.
Doctor Strange.
That kind of sounds a little fun.
Doctor Strange, Mom.
Doctor Strange, Pizza Papa.
Exactly. So, but yeah, I mean, a lot of them are, like I said, you're right though. You have to keep it simple, or else people can't repeat it. That was the thing. Morgan Freeman talked about it. Shawshank Redemption. He couldn't even pronounce it. And
that makes sense.
Shawshank Redemption struggled at the box office because nobody could pronounce the title. It's a classic now, but it failed then.
Yeah. And that's because Shawshank Redemption, without knowing what the movie is even about, it doesn't exactly sound like a title that would entice someone to be like, oh, I've got to go to the theater and see this Shawshank Redemption.
See how do they
killer.
How do they redeem a Shawshank? What's a Shawshank? I don't know. We're going to see how they redeem it.
Right. Same thing goes with like another Tim Robbins one, the Hudsucker Proxy.
Yes.
Like what?
Yeah.
To this day, after working with the internet, I still don't know what a proxy is. So
I
I
know.
don't expect me to understand what the heck's going on with the movie.
I know what proxy is when it comes to IT, but
Well,
yeah,
okay, don't try to
but,
show
but
smart on
also
me.
with Tim Robbins, you know, he also
Right.
had the movie IQ alongside Walter Matthau.
But that's the thing. I mean, if you want to go ahead and engage an audience, you have to get something that's going to attract their attention.
Sure.
And sometimes a short enough title with, the right kind of publicity adds a sense of mystery, because when you see something like Nope, it could be anything. You don't know what's going on with the poster. You just see the title there, and it's like, okay, now I'm intrigued.
All right. Here's, by the way, apparently the longest movie title as of 2013. Night of the day, of the dawn, of the son of the bride, of the return, of the revenge, of the terror, of the attack, of the evil, mutant, hellbound, flesh-eating, subhumanoid, zombified, living dead, part 2, in Shocking 2.
That's got to be a spoof movie.
You know, it sounds like one of those Animal House, or it's like 1991 apparently though, so it wouldn't be like a National Lampoon movie, I wouldn't think.
That's like
19
right up there with what was it? There was a whole line of like straight to video movies where they were trying to do kind of like what Don't Be a Menace did.
Don't be Menace to South Central or drinking.
Yeah, where it's just like combining
in the
movie
Hood.
titles in order to make a title. There were a few movies like that.
You can figure that out because it's like, you know, Menace to Society, Juice Boys, you know, and it's the Wayans brothers. So you kind of figured it out sort of from that, even if you didn't have the whole thing.
Right, but just because they did it doesn't mean you can pull it off.
No. You know. By the way, one of my favorite Wayans movies too. You know. We didn't.
Which, by the way, the only other time I heard about Wayans this weekend too, people were knocking on the old Marlon Wayans Dungeons and Dragons because the new Dungeons and Dragons was awesome.
That to me right there, Jeremy Irons owns that movie. There is nothing. The new movie looks good, but nothing will ever match. Let the blood rain from the sky. You know, Academy Award winner, and he is just basically like getting rid of a kidney stone, or, you know, basically whatever this was in the middle of these lines, because he looked at the script. He's like, they're paying me. This script sucks. Screw it. I'm just going to have some fun. And by God, he was a delight in that entire movie.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of titles, and since we have to segue out of this show, we actually made it to the end. Don't forget, this coming Thursday for Bad Movie Beatdown Summer Sucktacular, we're going with one of the shortest titles you ever seen on a movie. Kazam.
Yes.
Not
shortest
Shazam.
title, but
I have to correct. Not Shazam. Kazam. Kazam.
You know, because when you got Shaquille O'Neal as your lead, you know you got class.
Right. Just like Steel.
By the way, kids, if you didn't know, before actually he was doing Gold Bond and printer commercials and Papa John's commercial, Shaquille O'Neal actually played basketball. And he also tried to launch a movie career with that one, with Steel, I think at the time. He had a couple others in there too that really did not do well. Shaq Fu, which was considered to be one of the worst video games of all time.
I'm sure there was a basketball movie somewhere in there.
No.
Was he in Blue Chips?
He might have been. He was in Good Burger.
Oh, well, I mean, give the Oscar now.
Hells yeah, dude. Good Burger. Before Kenan Thompson ended up on SNL.
Yeah, let me get some orange soda and give a toast to that movie.
Dude, Abe Vigoda was in that movie. Why? Oh my God.
But yes, check that out on Thursday, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I believe that's a Disney Plus movie if you want to watch it along with us, because technically it is a Fox production and Disney owns it.
There you go.
Who knew?
So, all right. Yeah. So check that out on Thursday. Drop us a question. Drop us a question if you have anything. Tales from the Film Set at Gmail. Also, scott.churchson@streampunkent is my direct email there too. But anyway, we got to wrap this up. For myself, for Ryan, for the terrible internet connection that we had for like the entire first half of this, I apologize for that big time. But thank you again. Apologies to my mother-in-law who just moved in and heard me drop a whole bunch of F-bombs. Great way to make a good impression on someone who just moved in, who basically gave birth to your wife. Anyway, thanks as always.